So, lately there's been this really popular idea, and by lately I mean like the last 5 years. There's been this really popular idea, a completely made up scenario that conservatives have kind of dreamed up and pushed via like memes, conservative political comics, and sketch videos into convincing people exists. And that is the scenario in which a man dresses up as a woman in order to enter a woman's bathroom and get away with committing a sex crime against those women. That is essentially the sort of conspiracy, the story that conservatives will tell you we're at great risk of becoming true, or just straight up happens every day, if you ask some of them, because of trans acceptance in this country. And they will argue that, whether it be, sure, some trans women are valid, and allowing them to enter women's restrooms allows for men to take advantage of this, or they'll argue there are no trans women, they are all men, and any trans woman who does go into a women's restroom must be doing so for nefarious reasons. Pretty disgusting way of sort of pushing transphobia when you consider the fact that this has, like, never happened. In fact, famously, trans women are in more danger in a woman's restroom than cis women are in a woman's restroom. Statistically speaking, the crime stats don't lie. More trans women have been attacked by cis women in women's restrooms than cis women have been attacked by trans women in women's restrooms. And if you want to look at trans women in men's restrooms, the attacks against the trans women skyrocket substantially. The fact is, there's no actual statistical or data-driven point you could argue that trans women entering women's restrooms and locker rooms is a problem from, but they just try to sort of convince you that what if this imaginary scenario happened? Wouldn't that be bad? Shouldn't we try to prevent this imaginary scenario that not only doesn't happen, but statistically the opposite is more likely to happen? Regardless, the right has pushed this idea for quite some time, particularly TERFs, the transphobes that try to use feminist messaging that's been warped and molested into some new hate-filled rhetoric, trying to use some kind of girl boss, misandrous, woman empowerment argument in order to push hate and put down other groups. This sort of TERFy idea is often pushed by conservative women, claiming that they feel unsafe when trans women are allowed into the restroom. And let's say hypothetically this is true, right? Let's say the majority of cis women found themselves uncomfortable with trans women using the same restroom as them. What if that was true of white women when it came to non-white women? What if the majority of white women were not comfortable with allowing non-white women to use the same bathroom as them, and they wanted segregation? Would the majority of white women not being comfortable using the same restroom as non-white women mean that those white women are in the right, and that the majority of them being in favor of that means that they should get that? Or do you think that maybe restricting the rights to access public facilities for a certain group of people based on race or whatever demographic they're a part of is just inherently wrong? And when someone's discomfort comes at the expense of another group getting rights, then maybe the group getting rights should be the one prioritized, and not the group that just feels discomfort. Now, the reason why I use the women's bathroom example with race is because this was a thing. Back when segregation was ending, massive amounts of female white supremacists marched in the streets talking about how they didn't feel safe with desegregated bathrooms, and that they felt that their safety as women was being infringed upon by allowing brown and black women to use the same restrooms as them. And so, it is just a repeat of history. There have always been evil racist bitches, and those evil racist bitches will try to use their womanhood and some faux girl boss fake feminism in order to rebrand hate into something progressive. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this whole trans bathroom thing is because typically you imagine this conservative scenario where it's like this conservative made-up scenario where it's like a man dresses up like a woman, goes into like a woman's locker room, and is in there like peeping on the women or taking photos of them or something like that. Well, a story has been blown up by the right and has gone viral on conservative Twitter and like the conservative side of the internet, where the exact opposite has happened, and yet somehow the trans woman is still the villain. Let's watch. This story is absolutely wild, and the fact that the conservatives are claiming that the trans woman is still in the wrong in this is wild.
America now, another gender-related story where this lady's gym membership has been rescinded because she had the temerity to take exception to a male in the women's change rooms. Here,
this is Sky News, conservative outlet from Australia, I believe. Literally no left-wing outlets are covering this story. Like, I looked it up, and unless it's just Google being unusable these days, this story is like exclusively being covered by like Fox News, Sky News, like right-wing media figures, Brett Cooper, for example. Yeah, it's Fox News Australia is Sky News. Yeah. Like, obviously, this is going to be framed from like a really fucked up way, but what actually happened is a woman saw a trans woman in the locker room at Planet Fitness, and so upset at the sight of the trans woman in that locker room, she took out her phone, switched it to camera mode in the locker room, and took a photo of the trans woman in the locker room. And somehow, the trans woman minding her own business in the locker room is the villain, and the cis woman who took the photo is the hero and the victim of this story. So you're going to hear what happened be very much twisted by this right-wing like news source. But literally, this is a woman who lost her Planet Fitness membership because she took a photo of another person in the bathroom at one of their facilities. Something that is, if it's not illegal, it should be, to take photos of people when they're in like a locker room or bathroom. I know on Twitch, if you so much as like record yourself in a public bathroom, regardless of what you show, it's an instant ban.
To take exception to a male in the women's change rooms. Here, her name is Patricia Silva, and here she is telling you her story.
This morning I got canceled. Planet Fitness.
So because it's all conservative outlets covering this, like they're only platforming this lady's story. And has there ever been, like, she has the Karen cut. She's got the Karen Bob haircut for starters. Like the Karen Bob cut. So we're off to a good start. She took a photo of somebody minding their own business in the fucking locker room. And now after getting her, like her Planet Fitness subscription revoked and getting kicked out, she's no longer allowed. Her pass is taken. She's now like playing the victim. And all these right-wing news sources are jumping on it. Now, to give you an idea of how right-wing Sky News is, look who their source is. Domestic terrorist Libs of TikTok, who has literally inspired bomb threats on a children's hospital in Boston. Not even joking, by the way. Libs of TikTok tweeted falsely that the Boston Children's Hospital was performing sex changes on minors, something they just don't do. And then they had to shut down for 2 days afterwards after countless bomb threats were called in to the hospital, a children's hospital. So that's Libs of TikTok. I consider that domestic terrorism. So does the law, but you know, it's just one of those situations where bad people just keep getting away with it, you know. So she's just kind of Yeah. Who let Roseanne Barr into Planet Fitness, yeah.
This is defending the man in the women's locker room, the man with the penis, rather than the child sitting in the corner with a towel wrapped around her. I took that picture because I was.
What? Okay. For one, you're not supposed to look around at the other people in the locker room. I was on the swim team, dog. Like, you get pretty fucking good at not looking at anything when you go, like, use a locker room pretty regularly. Why? No, not the trans person wasn't a kid. No, Red Eye Fire. Apparently there was a kid in the women's locker room who just had a towel on. And so my question is, why the fuck was that a concern of yours? Like, unless there was actively something happening that should have been drawing your attention, why was this lady so fixated on the fact that there was a kid wearing nothing but a towel in the room and a trans woman in the room, and why did she take out her phone and then take a picture in the locker room? Like, this is just, how the fuck is this lady not the weird one? It's because she's not trans. You can literally take pictures of people while they're using the bathroom, and you're not the weird one as long as the person you are harassing is trans. It's a big reason why, like, despite the fact that being the kind of person who just spends all day, like, leaving hate replies and death threats on, like, trans people's Twitter posts or whatever, like, that kind of thing, conceptually should be considered, like, wow, you are such a loser. That's what you do all day. That is your life. You just, like, leave hate comments on people's posts. But because it's on trans people's posts, many people online these days see that as a completely acceptable behavior because they see being trans as such a, like, mark of poor character because of all the propaganda that, like, oh, this person is trans? That's like 70% of the way to being a lolcow, right? So that just kind of warrants harassment nonstop for a lot of people online, in the same way that if, like, somebody was, like, an actual predator, or if they did something, like, extremely cringe, it sort of makes you a lightning rod for these attacks and just instantly creates justification for people to attack you.
I felt like I was in an unsafe space. I would like for you women.
I love when right-wingers start, like, saying we need safe spaces unironically.
To stand up and have a voice.
It bears mentioning that Planet Fitness's stock has plummeted. People in great numbers in America have deserted this gym chain and just...
It's already bounced back. Like, even by the time they made this news report, the stock price had already bounced back. It didn't even drop below 3% of where it was the day before this happened, and it's already bounced back. People keep saying the Bud Light effect, but I know that quite a few lefty figures, including Destiny, bought Bud Light stock during the dip, and now they're in the positive and have made, like, a pretty decent amount of money off of it. So, like, Bud Light has mostly recovered. Planet Fitness bounced back because who the fuck? What concern? The way that a stock losing value works is a little bit complicated, but a lot of it involves people just saying, we're going to sell this stock if we already have it, as, like, a protest, right? And so it loses value, right? Like, the stock price in general goes down. And so what is, like, how many conservatives that are mad about this had Planet Fitness stock? Really? Planet Fitness? Planet Fitness. You think, like, I don't even think it's that conservatives don't have the power to hit a company with, like, dropping their stocks. They hit Bud Light pretty hard. They punished Bud Light pretty hard for daring to associate with a trans person. You know, they made it very clear where their position is on trans people, and I hope they stick with that in the future as their policies and positions on trans people get less and less acceptable. You guys just know eventually the right is going to start claiming the left are the real transphobes. You know that's coming, right? As, like, trans acceptance gets more and more popular, just like the right now claims the left are the real racists, The right are one day going to be claiming, and the right now claims the left are the real misogynists and the real racists. A day will come when the right is trying to claim the left are the real homophobes and transphobes. By like 2035 to 2040, I bet they will have to adapt their messaging so much. They'll have to say the left are actually the real transphobes because being trans will be that so broadly accepted. They'll have to trick people into going against the left. Just like they try to trick people into going against the left if they're anti-racist. It's quite wild.